Airports collect lost things the way oceans collect bottles, and for a long time my job was to catalog the tide. At Austin Bergstrom's Lost and Found, we logged everything from cowboy hats to wedding vows folded into a program. You'd think the phones were the saddest, blinking up at you like dogs in a shelter, but it was the suitcases that stayed in my head. Phones go home. Suitcases try to. The teal case arrived on a Tuesday in March, spinning on Carousel 3 with the sort of confidence only an object can have. It made 3 complete loops before the belt sighed to a stop, and the crew pushed it into our cart. It was scratched but stubborn, with a braided red ribbon looped through the handle like a habit. When I lifted it, something inside shifted with a thunk that sounded like a book landing on a desk. We log, we tag, we wait 90 days. If no one claims a case by then, it gets donated. But sometimes an item talks a little louder than policy. When I cracked the zipper to do the standard inventory, the first thing I saw was a leather-bound notebook with a sticker on the cover that read, "City to City List. Do not open if you hate fun." I did not hate fun. I opened it. Inside were pages of tidy boxes and small illustrations, organized by city like a road trip menu. Austin had "Buy tacos for strangers at Vera Cruz," "Listen to a backyard band without checking your phone," "Leave a book in a little free library with your favorite line underlined," softly. Santa Fe listed, "Find a turquoise pendant for someone who keeps promises," "Catch golden hour in the plaza," "Learn one red chili recipe." Flagstaff wanted, "Stargaze at Lowell," "Tip the barista who looks tired," "Pick up 10 pieces of trail litter and call it cardio." There were entries for San Francisco, Portland, Boise, Chicago, Boston, a dotted line of intentions across a map. The handwriting was precise, the doodles joyful, the tone bossy in a way I can get behind. Tucked into the back pocket were 2 disposable cameras, 4 stamped postcards addressed to a P.O. box in Portland, and a folded page titled "If Found," with a phone number that had surrendered to static. No name, just a P.O. box. Portland, Oregon, 97208. List. The case held practical things too. Jeans, a field jacket, trail runners, as if it belonged to someone who meant to keep going after wherever they were. In a mesh pocket, a small red thermos with a thumb-sized dent and a sticker that said, "Hydration is a hobby." A folded bandana smelled like laundry done by someone who takes pride in laundry. No wallet, no ID, no airline tag survived its journey. I did the normal thing first. I logged, I tagged, I filed the case on the teal shelf with the others, and recorded the P.O. box in the notes. I left a message on the dead number because superstition likes manners. Then I took my lunch break in the staff room and reread the list until the tacos on my plate had cooled to a metaphor. Everything about my life up to then was efficient in beige. Apartment south of the river with a balcony facing a parking lot. A cactus I refused to name because the last time I named a plant, it died. Friends who loved me in predictable ways and a job that loved me for predictable reasons. After a long relationship disassembled itself the year before, I promised myself small, useful adventures and then delivered none. I told my therapist I was tired of watching other people's plans arrive. The list inside the case was a dare that sounded like a to-do list. The next morning, I slid one of the Austin postcards out of the notebook, wrote the P.O. box in block letters like it might judge my penmanship, and took $20 out of my wallet. On my break, I drove to Vera Cruz, put the cash down at the window, and told the cashier it was for the next 4 orders. Watching other people receive tacos because a stranger decided they should, there's a way to say that that doesn't sound like a sermon, but I haven't found it. On the back of the postcard I wrote, "Austin, tacos paid forward, book left on West Mary," with this line underlined, "You are exactly this big and the sky is bigger. Both can be true." Backyard band heard from sidewalk. Phone stayed in pocket. I signed it. E. Found your case, keeping it moving until you claim it, and dropped it in a blue mailbox on my way back to work. It felt like stealing in the generous direction. For the next month, the teal case stayed on our shelf and the Austin page gathered check marks. I learned the satisfaction of drawing a small square and then being the kind of person who colors it in. I left a book with a soft underline at a little free library in Travis Heights. I went to a show in someone's yard and listened without turning my body into a broadcast tower. I started running again along the boardwalk at Lady Bird Lake and picked up litter until my pocket felt like a recycling bin. On day 31, I pulled the case from the shelf, set it on the counter, and told my boss I needed to use a week of vacation I'd been hoarding like a dragon. He is a practical man who has learned to say yes to specific eyes. I threw 2 shirts of my own into the case, added the list to the front pocket, and drove west. Santa Fe smelled like dust with a vocabulary and looked like light had decided to behave. I stood in the plaza at golden hour with 100 strangers who had the decency to stop pretending they weren't surprised. I bought a small turquoise pendant from a woman who asked me to promise to give it to someone who told the truth even when it made the room quiet. I learned red chili by messing it up and then respecting it. I took a picture on the disposable camera of a dog sleeping under a bench and wrote on the postcard, Santa Fe done, gold hour witnessed, pendant for an honest person acquired, red chili attempted with humility. I signed E like I was protecting the rest of my name until it earned sunlight. Flagstaff gave me stars. I lay on the hood of my borrowed courage at the Lowell Observatory parking lot and let the Perseids perform without applause. I picked up 10 pieces of trail litter, then 12, because numbers are satisfying. I tipped the barista who did look tired, and she put the cash straight into the shop's jar labeled staff fund for tires that keep breaking. On the postcard I wrote, Flagstaff complete. You were right about the sky. I drew a small coffee cup with a tired smile. In San Francisco, the list asked for Land's End and paying for someone's bus fare on the 38. In Portland, it wanted Powell's Blue Room and the Japanese garden at opening time. There was a checkbox for leaving an umbrella for the next person with worse planning than you. Boise wanted a sunrise from Table Rock and a donut from a place that sells out before noon. Chicago, buy a case of water for a cooling center. Boston, leave a compliment on the Harbor Walk chalkboard and carry someone's suitcase up the T-stairs because life didn't install escalators everywhere. I could have mailed all 4 postcards from Santa Fe, but I wanted the ritual of different blue boxes in different cities. In a diner in Raton, I wrote slowly, careful with verbs. In a laundromat in Boise, I wrote sunrise accomplished and added that the donut tasted like a good decision. In a hotel in Chicago where every floor had the same carpet and your door forgets to be your door, I wrote about the cooling center and how the man at the desk called me sir in a way that made the day feel sturdier. Sometimes the list made me feel ridiculous. Buying an umbrella to leave it for a stranger in a city nicknamed for rain felt performative. I did it anyway. A woman took it 5 minutes later and held it like a medal. Back in Austin, the teal case returned to the shelf. We were at day 63, and the policy clock didn't care about my extracurriculars. I kept checking the P.O. box online as if it would tell me a story disguised as a tracking number. On day 68, a small stack of mail arrived at the airport, addressed to Lost and Found. Teal case, Austin in familiar, tidy handwriting. Inside were 2 things, a letter and a photo. The photo was a Polaroid of a woman holding the notebook. Dark hair tucked under a cap, dimples like punctuation marks, the field jacket I recognized from the case. The letter was neat and short. E. You are either the kindest thief or the best accomplice I never met. The list was mine. The case wasn't supposed to get lost. Flights weren't supposed to slide. A hospital in Boise needed me early. Life does what it wants. I'm a travel nurse. The list started as a way to keep myself from becoming a person who saw only rooms with beeping. Then it turned into a friendship with a city at a time. Then the case slipped its tag, and I tried not to take it as a sign. Your postcards found me anyway. It was like watching my better self go on without me. Thank you for moving it forward. If you're willing, one last box. Portland, St. John's Bridge, Blue Hour. If I see someone under the East Tower with a red ribbon tied to a suitcase handle, I'll pretend the world is organized. If you can't, keep the case another week and donate it with my blessing. The pendant is for you to give when you know who it belongs to. M, the owner of the list, not of your life. At lunch, I bought a roll of ribbon and tied a neat red loop through the handle of the teal case. I booked one more cheap flight and told my boss I was borrowing the case after hours to update the inventory. He looked at the ribbon, looked at my face, and waved me out with a hand that had known young love once and didn't mind remembering. Portland's blue hour is not shy. St. John's Bridge wears its green like a promise, and the East Tower frames the world like it decided to keep it safe for a minute. I stood under it with a suitcase that did not belong to me and a ribbon that suddenly felt ceremonial. The river performed being patient. Runners and dog walkers rehearsed their daylight. Nobody looked like a nurse who writes lists. Then someone did. She came down the overlooked path with that purposeful stride you get from jobs that don't allow dithering. Field jacket, dimples, the haircut of a person who can solve tangles without announcing it. She stopped at the edge of the shadow, checked whatever map this was, and stepped into it like consent. We didn't make speeches. We stood next to each other like people who had shared verbs and were now auditioning nouns. She touched the ribbon, then the handle, not a test so much as a thank you. She was Marin up close, tired in a way that read as brave. She told me about flights that didn't, rooms that did, babies who chose to breathe, and the quiet science of convincing them, night shifts that made breakfast taste like winning. I told her about Belt 3, our shelf system, tags that pretend to be anonymous and then betray personality, the way airport nights sound like fluorescent lights trying to quit. We walked the bridge there and back and let the blue hour make us prettier than we felt. We sat on the low wall and watched a hawk consider math. She ticked me to person where the list says to, then handed me her pen, a small, earnest instrument. I checked the final box. Hand the case to the person who started moving. We ate by the river, salads done like religion, and traded stories in the shorthand of people who earn it by doing small, brave things in parallel. When she laughed, my chest recognized a room. I gave her the turquoise pendant and told her the vendor's instruction. She turned it in her fingers and said she knew exactly where it belonged, and we let the pronoun do its job for a while. Back home, the case did its last loop. On day 89, Marin stood at our counter with the paperwork that said it was hers, and the dimples that proved paperwork is sometimes redundant. Policy exhaled. We started texting once, then twice, then at the exact amount that lets a day be friendlier. Travel nursing is a violent schedule, and airports are a vocabulary of departures. But there are ways to practice presence with time zones. Every few weeks, the list added something. Oakland, press quarters into kids' hands at the arcade. Albuquerque, Sunday breakfast burritos in the parking lot of the place everyone already knows. Asheville, write a postcard to a past version of yourself and then set it on fire safely. She sent window cloud photos. I sent our teal shelf, empty where her case had been, as if absence could be a shape we both recognized. In July, Marin took a contract in Austin, and my kitchen learned my inventory. We didn't rush to a noun. She slept 8 hours in a row once and woke up crying because her body assumed it was dead. We laughed until it wasn't scary. She came to Belt 3 and watched a suitcase make loops like patience. Said she might start a list for staying. Then a thing happened that made the list feel less like whimsy and more like infrastructure. A storm clobbered the grid, and the city ran on generator manners. Our cooling centers overflowed, and a woman at the desk told me they'd run out of water by 10 a.m. The Chicago box on Marin's list blinked in my head. We bought a pallet of water and borrowed a truck from a baggage handler who owed me a favor. We spent the day in a lobby with tile that remembered the 80s and handed cold bottles to people whose faces recalibrated. Marin showed me how to recognize the walk of someone about to say no, save it for someone else, and how to make that no turn into okay, thanks. That night, we slept with the lights off and the city louder for it. The next morning, she looped the pendant around her neck and told me where it had gone the day before. A NICU mom who told the truth in the waiting room even when it made it quiet. I'll bring it back to her once more, Marin said, to show her it's ours for a while. We added our own page to the notebook, Austin, Stay Edition. Boxes like, pay the toll for the car behind you, leave quarters on a laundromat table, inventory your neighbors' names, spend a morning watching arrivals and clapping when someone runs. Bring paletas to the park at 5. You'd be surprised how many boxes you can check without leaving town. Then the teal case vanished again. this time from a thrift store shelf in Alabama called Unclaimed Baggage, where airlines orphans go to be resold into other stories. I saw it in a friend's photo on my feed. The ribbon, the dented thermos, the jacket I had folded. My stomach pitched. Marin just smiled. Good, she said. Objects deserve more lives. We didn't chase it. We wrote a new notebook together. The first page said city to city, handoffs, and was less a list than a set of handrails. If you find this, consider yourself deputized. Spend $20 like it matters. Send proof of life to someone who needs it. Meet at a bridge if you can. Listen more than you narrate. We left it in a soft-sided duffel at the airport free library where people forget they're allowed to be sentimental. We also built a tiny thing at the airport. My idea, Marin's insistence. A tray of stamped postcards and a sign, write one good sentence before you board. People wrote to grandmothers, to selves, to dogs. Some wrote to no one. I'm trying again. I was kind to a gate agent. I didn't cry until the rental car. The bin filled. We mailed them, then posted new cards. Gate agents started pocketing two on rough days. Security brought pens when ours walked away. A pilot wrote, "You are my favorite layover." Fall brought a contract in New Orleans for Marin and our first extended stretch of apart. We practiced a ritual. Pick a checkbox in each city that roughly matches the same muscle. Hers, community fridge restock, then be still long enough to help. Mine, lost luggage callbacks, extra two per lunch. We texted our small wins, no one bragging. She sent a photo of a paper crane taped to a street sign with a note. Better than nothing. Less demanding than advice. I taped a tiny sticker of a teal suitcase to the lost and found phone and answered the next call like it might be a person finding their plot. On a Sunday in November, we met in Phoenix for 8 hours between her shifts and my schedule. The list gave us donate sneakers to a shelter and watch landing lights from the park in view. We did both. At sunset, planes stitched the sky with intention, and we sat on the hood of my car and didn't need to talk. It felt like a checkbox without a box. If you're waiting for the high drama, there wasn't any. There was one fight about me ghosting my own sister for 3 days because I didn't want to admit I was overwhelmed. I apologized with a case of Topo Chico and a calendar block called Be Human. There was an almost break when Marine almost took a 3-month winter slot in Anchorage and then didn't because we realized almost is a place you can live in if you let it. On a Saturday in spring, we stood on Austin's Pfluger pedestrian bridge at golden hour. The case was elsewhere, busy being practical. We didn't need it. We had a routine made of errands and one ridiculous habit. Whenever a suitcase fell off a cart on the tarmac and the ramp crew righted it, we both whispered, "Go home like a spell." Sometimes we still check boxes on purpose. Last week we stood by the baby aisle at Target and prepaid 3 packs of diapers for the next person who looked like a math problem. Yesterday she left a book in a free library with the softest underline I've ever seen. Tomorrow she flies to El Paso. I'll send her photos of tacos and the cactus she finally named when it survived a summer without complaining. We built a map that doesn't need cities to be valid. Airports still collect lost things. Some get claimed. Some become part of a shelf's idea of itself. Every once in a while, one gives you a list that you treat like a map because your life needed a destination you didn't know existed. If you find a teal case with a ribbon on a carousel that wasn't expecting you, take it to the desk like a good citizen. But maybe, before you let go, open the front pocket and read the first line of whatever is inside. If it dares you to buy tacos, you know what to do. And if there's a pendant tucked into a corner with a note about honesty, hold it for the next person who says something true, even when it makes the room quiet. We'll be somewhere nearby anyway, mailing postcards from a tray that keeps refilling, clapping for arrivals like it's a job, and whispering, "Go home" to anything that still needs permission.